So good morning, everybody. My name is John Delaney. I am a local trial court judge here in Brazos County. I'm no longer an elected official. I retired about 24 years ago, and I now hold court by assignment around the state. I should begin by saying or explaining why I got here, why I'm in this room in front of you. I'm the father of 4 children. They're all grown now, of course. Beth is a physician in New Braunfels, OB-GYN doctor. Aaron is a assistant district attorney in El Paso County, head of the white collar division for her agency. Lee is a teacher and now nurse. And the 4th child, stepson Hall, is 42 years old now, and he's a homeless drug addict and alcohol. Some of you know people like that, or you wouldn't be here. He's been arrested about 29 times now, the last time I checked his record. Most of those resulted in convictions. He's unemployable, homeless. His mother and I grieve about what will become of him when we're no longer there to buy him a sack of groceries or pay for a telephone occasionally. So it dawned on me about 10 years ago that part of his problem was the fact that the state of Texas, like most jurisdictions in this country, still arrest people for possessing small amounts of drugs. And every time they get into jail, they acquire some more bad habits, like tattoos. My stepson is covered with tattoos. Nobody would hire him. He is part of a population of the state of Texas that has a criminal record. What is a criminal record? It begins simply with the fact that you were arrested. Whether you were convicted or not, no matter. Went to prison, jail, no matter. Just being arrested starts your criminal record. Our chief law enforcement agency, Department of Public Safety, keeps records on all of us. If we get an arrest, unless it's expunged or ordered not disclosed, the subject of our talk today, it's part of your criminal record. To quantify the problem, let's talk about this place, Texas. Think about the population that we have. 30 million people in Texas. That's everybody from a baby born yesterday to a 99-year-old in a nursing home. For demonstration purposes, let's consider this podium to be the population box, and it's filled to the top with those 30 million people. 15 million of us, about half, are what are called the employable people, the workforce, 16 and over. And I'm not sure where it caps out age-wise, but that's a good working number. Guess how many of us Texans have criminal records? 9 million. 9 million. 32% of everybody in this box has a criminal record. Now, if you think about only 15 million of us being the working age people, then that percentage goes way up. It's said that about 9 out of every 10 employers 4 out of every 5 landlords and 3 out of every 5 colleges use background checks to screen applicants for criminal records. Now, that doesn't mean everybody with a criminal record is automatically rejected, but many are. There's a sentence that I can't improve on, so I'll quote it, I'll read it to you. For many, a criminal record, even for minor, low-level offenses, and for people who have turned their lives around, is a lifetime sentence to poverty. For many, a criminal record is a lifetime sentence to poverty. I can testify that I've seen many such cases. Many of you know many such people. And it's a social problem for us in wider ways. It's said that the estimated combined lost annual income for Texans attributable to having a criminal record, lost income, $32 billion with a B dollars each year. So over time, many of us, not just those with a bleeding heart like me, have come up with partial solutions to this social dilemma. Because it is a dilemma if you stop and think about it. If you're an employer, surely you would like to know something about the life history of this woman who's applying for the job. Has she forged checks? Has she committed child abuse? Et cetera, et cetera. And what if you have an apartment project? You're a corporation and you have deep pockets and you own this huge apartment complex like we have so many of here. Surely you have some interest in knowing something about the past history of somebody who applies for an apartment. Because the young women who come and park their cars in that parking lot each night and walk to their apartments would appreciate some sense of safety. And if you rent to a serial sex offender, you're certainly exposing your tenants and your own pocketbook to some liability. And it's probably for that tension between these competing interests that we have a fairly limited law in Texas, or set of laws, that address this dilemma. And Brad is going to talk in much more depth about our legal responses to that dilemma. But to bring it home in a more personal way for me and perhaps for you, let me tell you a brief story about my friend Bob. PhD, married to a PhD, taught here for 40 years. One of my best friends. We play golf together. When I leave here, I'm going to go home and we're going to sit down with other friends and we're going to watch Texas Aggies play Florida, God willing, win. Bob's a good person. Bob has 3 adult children, like me. One of his children I'll call Timothy, not his name. Not Bob's name either. Timothy is 38 or 9 years old, graduated from this institution, degree in computer science, had a series of jobs in the computer industry. He's a specialist in something called network security. I can say the words, but that's about all. Typically works by contract, under contract with companies that have contracts with government agencies, often the the military complex. Contracts are renewable annually. So last August, about 5 blocks from here, at a popular local watering hole on a Saturday night, near quitting time, Timothy left to go get in his car. He was watched very carefully by a local police officer. You know, police are smart. They go to the watering hole where the wildebeest are located to feed on the wildebeest, meaning they watch for people who are intoxicated, quite rightly. So this officer identified Timothy as a likely intoxicated driver, followed him a couple of blocks, pulled him over, gave him field sobriety tests, and arrested him for driving while intoxicated. First ever in 38 years for Timothy. He'd heard somewhere that you don't want to take voluntarily give a breath specimen or submit to a blood alcohol test. So like many people, he said, nope, I'm refusing tests. Well, that's no longer good enough because you're in custody and the officers can easily get a warrant to take you down to the hospital and draw some blood and analyze it. And that's what happened to Timothy. After I helped the next day get him bonded out of jail, he waited and waited and waited. To compress the story a little bit, he didn't run right out and hire a lawyer. He just waited to see what would happen. And one day, a letter comes in the mail from the county attorney saying, I've rejected the charges. That's it. You're free to go. Your case is over. So he'd been arrested, so he has a criminal record, right? But the prosecuting attorney did not accept the case for prosecution. Why? Because when they drew blood from him, he came out under the legal limit. The blood test designed to prove whether you're, quote, DWI or not, showed that he was not legally intoxicated. They probably could have still prosecuted him, but they would have had an uphill fight. So his contract, mind you, this is August a year ago, somewhere after that, his contract with his employer came up for renewal. They routinely run background checks. His arrest popped up. You're arrested for DWI. I'm sorry, we have all these other people who want jobs. We can no longer take a risk with you. I'm reading between the lines. They didn't send him a letter like that. They just said, bad background check, no more contract. So he is unemployed now. He's part of that 9 million with a criminal record. But he's got a master's degree from Harvard. He's got an undergraduate degree from Texas A&M. And he can't get a job with his massive technical skills. Now, he is blessed by the fact that he has family resources, so they're going through the process of getting an expunction order. They learned in the process that there's a 1-year waiting period from the arrest to the ability to get an expunction order. I'm not sure why that has to be. In fact, there even is a procedure where he learns after the fact where you can go get a letter from the prosecuting attorney and that'll expedite the 1 year, compress it a little bit. So it's personal to me on many levels. And I can tell you that my heart bleeds for victims, and it sometimes bleeds for people who have been victimized by the legal system. I have sent several thousand people to prison. My mother was murdered in Houston in 1983. I am not a namby-pamby guy when it comes to crime, but I am a big believer in being smart on crime. If I am anything, I am a dedicated serial pragmatist. We need always to do what works and makes sense and does the most good for the most people. Well, I couldn't be trusted with a deeper dive into the world of expunction and non-disclosure because I haven't practiced law in a long, long time. I've signed lots of expunction orders, but the how to do it is not something that I'm qualified to talk about. There are people who do it for a living who are present with us who are going to take care of that. But let me give you the big picture real quick. The world of expunction, sometimes called expungement, but in our law, it's expunction, is a very complicated technical world. Here in my hand is something that I printed out to study for this presentation. It's called Understanding Expunctions and Non-Disclosures. It's an article written by a very, very bright lawyer named Andrea Westerfeld in the Ellis County District Attorney's Office, presented to the State Bar of Texas annual advanced criminal law course last year. It is 16 pages, single-spaced, and almost takes a magnifying glass to read it. It took me days to work my way through this, and then I had to read it again. It is very complicated, and this is written for lawyers, okay? So one other thing I wanted to tell you before I leave here. If you want to know more about how to get an expunction or an order of non-disclosure for you or for a friend, relative, I am happy to send you some material by email rather than try to wade through it here because it'll put you to sleep so fast. First thing you need to do is to find out if you or your friend qualifies. And there's only a tiny sliver of us that qualify. But I'm going to leave my little notebook up here on the stage. And after we're done, if you want me to email you some of this material, including free legal resources, the websites to such places, I will see that you get it. I could call out all those websites right now, but I'll say two: TexasLawHelp.org or .com, TexasLawHelp. One or the other. And the Texas Young Lawyers Association, they have a wonderful website about it. And the Office of Court Administration, the Texas Office of Court Administration, they have form petitions there. I mean, our system, quote unquote, has addressed this pretty vigorously. There are lots of helping groups out there to get people to clear their criminal record if they qualify. Well, The word has not penetrated far enough. Consider this. For the last 4 years, in the state of Texas, there have been about 2,200 petitions for non-disclosure petitions. Those are record-sealing petitions. If you meet the qualifications, these are the ones, actually, these are the orders, I think, that have been granted, about 2,100. But in Harris County alone, that's Houston, Texas, for those of you who are non-Texas, a study showed that there are about 640,000 people with criminal records on the books in that county alone that are eligible for non-disclosure orders. People don't know that it's such a thing. They don't know how to go about working on it. They can't afford it. They're too busy putting roofs on houses or shoveling asphalt or smoothing concrete and putting food on their table to take time for such things as clearing up their criminal record. So I will stop there and leave it up to Brad to carry the ball from here. And if you have any questions after, I'll do my best. A friend of mine here in the audience is a local lawyer named Jay Granberry, who I invited to come. And I'm sure he'll be happy to participate with us when that time comes. Here's the notebook. If you write your email address down, you'll get something from me with some sources where you can get help. Thank you very much.
Once again, a tireless advocate for our causes in Texas. First off, I want to take a moment. The person that started the Justice Reform Foundation just arrived. His name is Justin Magnuson. And I just wanted to briefly give you guys a chance to get to know what our purpose is and kind of what drives us all to do this wonderful cause that we call helping justice impacted individuals regain their lives. Okay.
Everybody hear well enough?
Can you hear me? Okay. I'll get it closer to my mouth. Is that better? Okay. We're on. All right. So once again, Justin Magnuson's a person that started the Justice Reform Foundation, a tireless advocate for people that have been justice impacted. He has a story that is very compelling, very, very moving in the fact that he himself was a kind of a victim of the criminal justice system at large. So a business owner, a person of adequate means. Otherwise, this person has gone tirelessly above and beyond to help out people that are like I said, on a day-to-day basis, trying to feed their families, trying to do things and put food on the table. So without further ado, Justin Magnuson, JRF.
Thank you, everybody. As he said, this Justice Reform Foundation is near and dear to my heart. I'll start with a brief story about myself and my life. I'll try to keep it brief. My wife tells me I talk too much. I should be a politician. Oh, wow. So I was lucky enough to sell a business in 2017. I semi-retired, and after about 6 months, I got bored to death and thought I had to go back to work. I started investing in a number of small businesses, bars, restaurants, military weapons companies for the government, a number of different things. Unfortunately, I invested in a legal grow in California. Turns out some of the employees were just doing stuff that was illegal. Back in the day, it was they didn't have track and trace, so you couldn't track all the marijuana. So they were kind of taking it some on the side and selling it illegally. Unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately they got busted, but unfortunately they said that, there's the money guy, he's the kingpin. It was all his idea, and just, there started a 2-year involvement in my life where I spent basically 20 months behind bars because I would not plea and I wouldn't work with them. And, effectively I didn't know what they were doing. And ultimately it came out the evidence showed that I didn't know what they were doing. So they released me after 20 months. It was during COVID, so I didn't get to see my family or friends, didn't get to go outside. We're basically stuck in a room for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it was an unfortunate event, but through all that, I learned So the failures of the justice system, it's called the justice system, and it is just, but there is a lot that needs to be done to make it more fair for people. Because eventually, there are bad actors, there are non-bad actors. Even bad actors can make mistakes and come out of the justice system. What we're here to do today is try to help those people come out of the justice system and get back and be productive members of society. When you come out and you cannot get a job because you have a record, recidivism skyrockets. Ultimately, people just want to feed themselves and their families and do the right thing. But if you don't have the tools to do that, luckily I had the means that I came out and I was fine, but most people don't. So if you don't have the tools to do that and you can't even afford to get your record expunged, you go back into doing things that are most likely illegal and not beneficial for you or society. So with all that being said, that's what we're here to do today. One of the things that we're focused on with JRF is Clean Slate. It's an initiative that would make these expunctions and these sealings automatic. We got a long way to go with that. So until that's finished, until we get that approved and passed in legislature, we have to do this. And I thank you guys for being here to help us talk about this and how you get records expunged. It's somewhat of an arduous process, but again, until we get something like Clean Slate passed, this is what we have to do, and it's beneficial. So that's enough about me. I'll hand it back to Brad, and thank you guys for being here. Thanks for allowing me to come.
Stay. Hello.
Steer so I can see you.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let me see if this wireless mic works here. Can you guys hear me with this mic here? Okay, good deal. So my name is Brad Douglas, and I am a U.S. Army veteran, 101st Airborne Division Air Assault. This is my dog, Nadua. She's my service animal. I received her through a Project Kenny. It's another nonprofit I work closely with, providing dogs to service-disabled vets and people with, mental health issues. Come on over here. I'll just use this one. I don't think it's working out. Better? Okay. So let me start by saying that I have... Okay. All right. So let me first start out by saying that, none of us are blameless in this. I don't have the doctrine of clean hands, as we call it in the law, to protect me from certain issues. I was a part of the Veterans Diversion Program Court in Fort Worth, Texas, prior to becoming an attorney. So I can tell you firsthand, the hurdles that one faces for having any type of infraction are severe, especially when it comes to professional licensure. We try to help people through these steps. It can be very daunting, very arduous to get through these things in the state of Texas. It's not an easy process to go through, let alone without the resources, as Justin said, or having an attorney. By show of hands, how many lawyers do we have? Any? Cool. All guilty. Okay, good. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get the slideshow started. Aha. So, expunction and non-disclosures in Texas. So the importance of expunction and non-disclosure, as we've highlighted essentially through the first two presentations, is that meaningful employment is really hard to get. If you have something on your record, say possession, be it a felony or a Class A or whatever they decide to characterize it as, that follows you around. Even if you don't get convicted, the arrest itself will follow you around and haunt you. Essentially, between that, in 2019, they did a study at Michigan University Law School, and they found out that the people that had their records cleared had lower recidivism rates. So 1% reoffended within 5 years versus a 30% in 5 years if you don't get an expunction. Right? That's due in part to the fact that they can't get gainful employment. Upward mobility is very hard to achieve when no one will give you a job. When you don't get a job, you're going to go back to doing the same stuff you were doing to make money. And unfortunately for a lot of us, when we were that age or lacked the means, we didn't understand the process. So many people struggle really hard, and struggling to get a house is hard enough without having that on your record. So if you have something that is an infraction for your record, they will deny you rent. They'll deny you the ability to get a place to stay. If you have any type of possession charges or a fraudulent offense, you definitely won't be able to get in because of insurance purposes. They don't want you to have loans at the bank. And like Judge Delaney said earlier, insurance is even impacted by it because you become a liability the second they sign that paper. Other things that are affected, immigration status, family dynamics, such as child custody. I can't tell you how many times I've seen any type of infraction, possession for marijuana, especially being used in a child custody case to defame the other party. And most of the time, it's just accusations. You've been arrested, you haven't been indicted or charged formally. You could be completely acquitted of it, but if it's still on your record, they can use it. So, the difference between expunction and non-disclosure. Expunction is the process of legally erasing a record, which means you can claim factually that you did not have an infraction of that nature and it's gone. Whereas non-disclosure is just going to seal your record from public view, but it does not erase it. So if a government agency or some other statutory device looks for this on your record, they can still see it. However, a private citizen or a person that's a private business looks for it, legally they're not allowed. You don't have to tell them that you've done it or that you've been arrested. So this falls under what we call the source of law, right? Expunctions, Chapter 55, Texas Criminal Code, and non-disclosure. Imagine a young person, maybe someone in their early 20s, makes a mistake, getting caught with some small marijuana. You go 5 years forward, every job interview ends in rejection. The arrest keeps them from getting employed. This is where attorneys can provide life-changing assistance. Now, the legal process of expunction. First, you have to confirm eligibility. That is your offense eligible, and did you follow the guidelines statutorily to be able to have your offense expunged? Second, gather all the necessary documentation. That's going to be your arrest record, any pertinent stuff that comes from the jurisdiction in which you were arrested. File a petition in court. This is the daunting part. Serve notice to all relevant agencies, attend the court hearing, and then follow up. Now, the reason this is difficult and easier said than done is because Texas Criminal Code is not written in a way that is easy for a non-lawyer or a layperson to understand. I'll show you in a minute, how daunting it is. Petitions are often denied because the petitioner was not eligible or not enough time had passed. As Judge Delaney highlighted, there are different statutory requirements for time in order to get your infraction expunged. Many people may be eligible for expunction or non-disclosure and they don't know it because no one's counseled them. They get their stuff dismissed and it follows them around and they don't know until they go to get an apartment or go to get a job or go to get insurance. When they find out your insurance rates are higher, you can't get a place to live, etc. So this is an example of why it's difficult. Now, this is the same code that I highlighted, 55, right? Looks a lot longer on paper. Now imagine navigating this and you're a person, father of three, mother of three. You've been arrested, you got arraigned, you got acquitted, nothing happened. You think, hey, it's gone. I didn't go to jail. Well, let's navigate this real quick and see if we can get you through the process. No one counsels you on it, then you wouldn't know. So let's redact it. Looks a lot easier, right? So this is what falls under the source of law for 55. It's expunction eligibility for individuals acquitted, charges dismissed, or successfully completing a diversion program. That's that thin sliver we talked about earlier. That's the place you fall. That's the sweet spot where you are eligible to get that expunged. Now, individuals whose statute of limitations expire without formal charges, that's somebody who gets charged. You'll get a charge and nothing will be pursued. As the example listed earlier happened, nothing happened. It just gets acquitted, but when you went to get a job, it comes right back. And of course, wrongful convictions or pardons. That's going to be the state of Texas, like the governor of Texas, for example, or the president himself. So, doubtful. But it does happen. And that's Kodak Black. All right. Eligibility for expunctions. You may be eligible. I like the word may. May or shall are huge in the language of the statute. So you may be eligible if you were arrested but never charged. There's no felony offense arising out of that same transaction. The prosecuting attorney certifies the records are not needed for investigation, prosecution of any other person. So that means that if you had something attached to another individual, you still may be on the hook until that individual is acquitted for the crime. So if you're a juvenile charged with a misdemeanor, in some cases, that's also allowable. But as I said, these are all part and parcel for the same offenses on the previous page. Now, felonies and the statutes of limitation. Statute of limitations is the amount of time the prosecution has to bring charges. The statute of limitations differs by category of offense, which means it depends on what you're charged with. Felonies have classes, misdemeanors have classes as well. If you're seeking expunction for a felony, you cannot do so until the statute of limitations for that offense has expired. That's huge. If the statute of limitations for the felony is 3 years, you have to wait until the 3 years are up to even file a petition. That gets the ball rolling, but after that, you're looking 6, 7 months to file a petition, and then an additional 3 or 4 months, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, to be heard by the court after you file the expunction paperwork. So, an expunction petition, you filed in the court where your case occurred. The petition has to be uniform with the previous action. It requires information about your case, so you need to gather all of that together. That's what an attorney is there for. Helpful documents, which is arrest docs, case number, and agency information. So what police arrested you or what federal agency arrested you, and all that information. This is just an example of what a petition looks like, your name, all this other stuff. Like I said, it's very daunting if you take a look at it. That's just exemplary of what we talked about. So the order has the exact same information. They're going to fill this out for you at the end. When you finally get an order of expunction, it's a directive that's issued by the court. Yeah, and they have 30 days to raise any issues, so that's repetitive. Non-disclosure is the next topic, and this is the topic that the people have the most questions about. A non-disclosure is indeed different than an expunction in the fact that non-disclosures are open to a wider variety of offenses. Also, it's different because it's sealing and it does not erase the record. It is still available to federal agencies and government agencies. So it hides certain offenses from public disclosure, but they're still visible by criminal justice agencies and licensing government. So if you go to get like a background check at like ID to go or all these places where you go to get your licensure and all that stuff for professional licenses, it still shows up when they look at it. So this is different. It frees you from disclosing information to jobs and apartments and stuff like that. So you can still go and clean up your record somewhat, but this is not the same as an expunction. So there's 5 steps, well, 6 steps. You must have been placed on deferred adjudication, community supervision for the offense in question. You must have completed deferred adjudication or successfully completed deferred adjudication. The court that placed you on deferred adjudication should have issued an order of dismissal and discharge. This is the hard part. An order of dismissal and discharge, isn't going to be granted unless you can show cause or show a good reason why. It's good for everybody concerned, including the county in question, that you should be acquitted or you should be granted a non-disclosure. And sometimes people don't present their evidence in the correct manner, and it comes before a judge, and they decide, well, we're not really going to go forward with that. So the offense in question must be an offense you obtained a non-disclosure for, and you have to have no further disqualifying criminal history. I'll get to that in the next slide. Then, of course, there's the nominal waiting period that comes with all of it. Now, if a client or a loved one are uncertain if they have any disqualifying criminal history, a copy of your criminal history record can be obtained at the Texas Department of Safety. Here's the links, and if you guys have any questions afterwards, I'll be sending this entire slideshow forward. It's got links throughout so you can find the additional information necessary to find out if you qualify, if you have any disqualifying criminal history that might limit you from getting a non-disclosure. And the complete process is the next one. That's going to be another link. So like I said, if you guys have any further questions as far as this is concerned, feel free to reach out. I'm going to send this and include it with an email to the Texas Cannabis. And that's all I got. If you guys have questions about it immediately, by show of hands, anybody got anybody that's justice impacted right now? Somebody that's got one? So like they need expunctions? So the thing about that is you're going to fall under certain disqualifying, and that's what this the disqualifying criminal history report is. You find out which statute or which thing that he was convicted under. You find out if he can submit for it, and if he's eligible, you get it sealed or expunged. I want to ask what the offense is, obviously, but he's gained housing since then. Good deal. Absolutely. Are you in this area? Okay. I have some contacts in Harris County. I'll put you in touch with. Okay, no worries. Is anybody else? Hey, Justin. So the thing is, it differs by jurisdiction. That's a great question because in Texas, each municipal entity has their own waiting list, their own time frame. San Antonio, for example, might have 3 to 6 months. Austin might have a backlog and they might have 5 to 10 months. It depends on judicial discretion also. You know, if they have a stacked docket, they're going to have the ability to say, hey, we're going to triage this based upon, you know, need. So the thing is, once you get started, the main thing is having somebody that has a good relationship with the clerk's office to keep on following up. Because the clerks inevitably are the ones that kind of shuffle the things through the process. So, but on average, I'd say in Texas, probably between 90 days to 6 months. Outstanding. So yeah, so the thing is you can look through different corporate agencies. A lot of these people have services for it, but usually you look for each one. The problem with the internet is, let's start there. Historically, you know, people have been able to get an expunction that closes it off and gives a hefty fine. It publishes it and says, hey, if you disclose this information, you're going to get fined because this has been processed through a court of law. You send that out to all the agencies, they are on notice. However, the private organizations that are online that do background searches, the ones that private investigators use on a regular basis for the purposes of going to court, they can't use it in court, of course, but they can use it to limit your ability to gain employment and then just not tell you anything about it. So when you're going to get that job application and you get the second interview and you don't get a call back, there it is. The thing that you can do for that is you reach out to each one of them. You have to send them individually the order itself and show, hey, you guys can't have this published. This needs to be changed from my record. It's been expunged or it's been non-disclosed. And there's a penalty. You quote the statute and say there's a penalty associated with you publishing this information, which is now incorrect based upon adjudication by the state of Texas. Yeah, and the thing that's great about that is, you know, each one of those is a lot cheaper. Once you get the expunction done, some people will charge you $25 per website, and they get after it and really they'll give you a tally of all the ones they find. If you find any additional ones yourself, they'll be able to email them. I've used a company called Easy Expunctions. They do pro se expunctions before too. They know the statute. They also allow people to ask questions, and they go after all the secondary people, which is those secondary fact finders that go online and publish your private information for money. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
If you want the legal system to give you some help, then the starting point is to find out if you qualify for that help. There's only a tiny fraction of people walking around with a criminal record who actually qualify for an expunction help or an order of non-disclosure. And so if you can remember these words, fresh start. There's a thing called a Fresh Start app that Georgetown University up in Washington, D.C., or Georgetown, actually publishes for each state in the country. And you can log on to the Fresh Start website at Georgetown and answer the questions about your offense, whatever state it's in, and they'll tell you what options are available. You may not qualify. Like if you're on parole, that means you went to prison, and that means you were convicted of a felony. You can never have that record expunged. It's there for your life. My suggestion to your friend is to learn another trade. He can start his own business, like the guy who does lawn irrigation. First time he came to my house to do lawn irrigation, he said, "You're the judge, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You don't remember me, do you?" "I'm sorry." But he was in my court long years ago. He said, "They wanted to revoke my probation, but you said no. You left me on probation and I finished. But I got this record and I'll never get a job for anybody else. So out of desperation, necessity, I learned how to do this stuff." And he's got a vehicle that's a lot more expensive than mine. Start your own business. And in a reverse way, that's kind of interesting, sociologically, if you think about it. You're driven out of the workforce to work for other people. So the people who've got the wherewithal to do it will find an alternative trade where they can be self-employed. And that's a good thing.
There's other organizations also that actually specialize in that. company, it's Checks, correct, Justin? Checker. So yeah, if you can put them in contact, I'll give you the website and everything. Checker is actually a really great organization. We have a person that's a part of our organization that went through that after he was incarcerated for 24 years. And he, he quickly began helping people and he rose through the ranks of that organization. And they definitely put people where they need to be as far as employment and upward mobility.
So the takeaway is, don't do nothing. Tell your friend, your son, don't just suffer in silence. Dig in or get somebody to dig in for you to find out if you're legally eligible and then what's the next step. And thank you. Sorry about that. And I'm sorry if I confused you. I didn't mean for you to necessarily come up here and write your name down while we were talking, but before you leave the room, if you'll write your email address down here, I'll be glad to send you the material that will lead you to all the helping agencies that I know of that exist.
So as far as that's concerned, if you get an order of expunction, it's done. Like I mean, it's one of those things where if you can get an expunction, get an expunction. Like you said, it's very, very thin group of people that are allowed to do that. But an order of non-disclosure is more if you have a felony or something like that, or some offense that cannot be expunged, then you go for a non-disclosure.
An order of expunction covers this universe of criminal record, non-disclosure, a bigger universe. But the entire universe reaches to the ceiling. Jay Granberry, local lawyer. Big voice, please.
Unless or until you get it sealed or big boy voice, sealed or expunged. But I think it's important to realize the non-disclosure laws, as Brad can tell you, have really evolved lately, and it's confusing as heck, but it opens up a lot more opportunities. Even misdemeanor convictions can be sealed. The only caveat, as long as you don't have any other non-traffic offenses.
And it's got to be your first one too.
Right. No other deferreds, which you could get sealed, or other arrests that you could get expunged. So there's a way you can massage it. But really, short of going to prison, as Judge Delaney said, and being a convicted felon, there's actually a very good chance you can get it sealed or expunged. Sealed is really only for if you completed a deferred adjudication successfully, and tons of people do that, regardless of how many times you've been arrested. If you complete a deferred, and Brad can tell you this, but as far as getting it expunged, that just means it's erased, but really, it's almost the exception if you're creative, and Brad, he knows how to dig into that too. There's a good chance you can get it sealed or expunged, so.
Yeah. The takeaway is don't give up. Keep digging and looking until you find out, A, if you qualify, and if you do, you go to step B. How am I going to do it? Am I going to do it by myself, like the form petitions that are available online with texaslawhelp.org, or am I going to hire a lawyer, or am I going to seek out one of these free legal outfits? But the starting point is, am I eligible? And you can learn that hopefully by yourself. You had a question. Big voice. Correct.
Yes.
Hopefully they see nothing.
Yeah.
If they do a criminal record check, then the people who go looking for criminal records won't see anything, hopefully. The real takeaway here is don't get arrested, because there's always a chance that something will slip through the cracks.
So for the black hole portion, sometimes you're asking, so if an arrest will show up. So the arrest might show up, but the charge might have been, expunged. So the thing about that is you have to follow up. That's what they say when you have the hearing. That's what that follow-up portion is. Follow up and make sure, hey, it's been expunged. I need to have this arrest removed as well.
No, they won't see it. Sealed means sealed. It's invisible.
It's invisible to them, but to the other agencies, like we were saying, private, organizations that surf the internet and all that good stuff, they'll see it on there. And so that's why it's incumbent upon us to go ahead and go forward and say, hey, contact each one of these people, show them the order. Hey, take this down. That's on it. And unfortunately, that's on a case-by-case basis. Yeah.
Here's a fun fact. If you have your conviction, not conviction, if you have your arrest expunged and you are asked by an employer, do you have a criminal record as they define it? Have you ever been arrested, for example? You can answer no. You can legally lie. Let's call it what it is. You're permitted to lie because of the social choice we've made. We empowered people to lie about their criminal history if they've jumped through all the steps in order to make them employable. That's the bargain we've made. And even if you are in a courtroom and you're asked under oath in a criminal proceeding, have you ever been convicted of a crime? You can say, that is the subject of an order of expungement. That's in the statute. You can say that. You're not allowed to completely say no, but you can go through that little drama. So again, expunction, little bitty, like my friend Timothy, arrested, but the prosecuting attorney rejected charges, but it's still on his record. He can get that expunged after he waits a year and jumps through the legal hoops. Non-disclosure usually applies to misdemeanor cases where you got deferred adjudication, meaning you weren't found guilty, but you served out your time, you're dismissed. But anything most criminal records, I'm sorry, it's going to live with you in the state of Texas. We have things called clean slate laws that many states have passed. I guess you would say Texas has a version of a clean slate law in that some deferred adjudication resulting cases get automatic non-disclosure orders made. But we're way behind the curve, so to speak, in having those automatic. I was telling my daughter, the doctor, that I was coming to do this presentation, and she said, what is this expunction thing? What are you talking about? And I said, well, you're arrested, you don't get actually charged, but you've got a criminal record. It'll follow you forever. You might not get into medical school. That opened her eyes. And she said, well, why do you have to go to court and get a judge to sign a paper? Why doesn't the system that did this to you undo it automatically?
That'd be nice.
I said, really good question. And there are people working on that, but so far it had to come to pass in Texas.
What's your question, sir? So executive function on that one, that's going to be one of the things that makes you eligible for an expunction. So he says that goes, and that's, I mean, like I said, that's going to be, I mean, we got Kodak Black, right? Like I said, it's one example of the presidential pardon power, and it's an executive function that they can use to wipe everything clean. So the governor of Texas, can do that. They can also keep you from dying on the day of your death on death row.
How many people in this room actually know somebody who's been pardoned by the governor? Oh, wow.
Well, I want to know that story. Wow. I'll talk to you later. Well, the thing is, so are you talking about from the same perspective of the press and what that looks like, or are you just talking about the interplay with the legal system? Well, that's the thing. I think if you have an expunction order or a pardon from the governor. So if the governor pardoned you, like I said, I think that's the controlling body. I'd have to dig into the statute a little bit, but I think that's the controlling form. I don't think that you need to go and get. Yeah. Okay.
You're asking if the pardon order could be sealed somehow. Yeah. And the answer is no, because all this business about non-disclosure and expunction is a creature of the statute. Mm-hmm. The statute says you got to do this, you're eligible now, and if you're not on the list, you don't get it. And pardon orders to the best of my knowledge, are not on the list of orders for non-disclosure.
Yeah, my apologies. I didn't realize your question. That's the truth. Yeah. The order itself, no, we can't. Okay. Anybody else?
I got 1225. I think we're
We're out of time.
close to, but I'll be happy to stay here.
Yeah, I'm going to take her to use the restroom, but I'll be right back. Thank you guys for showing up. We really appreciate it.